Welcome to Friday 15 with Master B2B. My name is Brian Beck. I'm here with Andy Hoare, my partner in this thought leadership effort around B2B e-commerce. Andy, happy Friday. Glad to be here with you.
Yeah, this is a warm day in the summer, which is a lot better than a cold day in the winter.
Well, depends if you like to ski or not.
There's my advice.
I kind of like cold better than warm, man. 95 and humid is not fun. So, well, welcome everyone. We got a great session today. We're going to talk about a topic around culture, which is kind of a soft topic, and it doesn't get as much attention in the community here, where we talk a lot about technology and marketing and other things. But we're going to take on the culture question today and talk about some of the impediments to building a great culture. But before we do that, Andy, as usual, we want to talk a little bit about some breaking news. So let's get to that. And you found this article on Global Industrial. Tell us about it. What's going on?
Yeah, just happened yesterday. It's going to be interesting to watch. But Barry Litwin, who's the CEO of Global Industrial, stepped down to pursue other ventures, which sounds like private equity to me, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But he was there for about 7 years. And I think the reason why this is interesting is because Global Industrial is sort of a standard setter when it comes to customer experience for B2B pure play. It's about $1.2, $1.3 billion company.
Wow.
It's been kind of up and down for the last several years, more up than down, but it really is a strong pure play in B2B. It's kind of like Amazon Business, but for industrial stuff specifically. So it'll be interesting to see who becomes the new CEO there.
Yeah, no question. And, we use them as an example. And they've participated in quite a few of our events over the past couple of years. It'll be interesting to see how that evolves. But it also speaks to our culture question today, right? About evolution and creating a great culture. So, and Andy, I saw this this week. An article just came out, or some data from eMarketer, that says Google will remain a top destination for ad spend in the generative AI era. This is fascinating. Some data showing that Google will remain the top, really place where marketers are spending money. 70+% are going to be spending money on, using Google or staying relevant in Google. But, and you recall, Andy, we had this, it was a year and a half ago where, when ChatGPT came out and everyone called it the death of Google, and Google was falling behind. And now you see in Google, the AI overview is built right into the search engine. But one of the things that's clear to me from this is kind of a bubble, in the sense that, or kind of a limited view of the marketplace, because this data only talks about the search engines. You saw some data in here that spoke to, was it Gen Z or millennials using AI? What was that?
So Google's dominating this market, but this is no longer the only market when it comes to finding things. So 61% of Gen Zers, in the same article by eMarketer, said that 61% of Gen Zers are using AI tools instead of search.
Okay.
And think about it, this doesn't include Alexa, Siri, my wearable watch, all these voice activated, interactions with companies, and the AI like ChatGPT, et cetera. These are alternative search engines. And so I think we need to redefine this market. But within search, Google's dominating, but search may not be the only market for searching anymore.
Well, amen. I mean, look at this leaves out Amazon. I mean, Amazon is the #1 product search engine. If you're selling products and you're not on Amazon, you're missing out on a huge chunk of search activity. So again, this is kind of a limited view of the marketplace. But it was interesting to see here. Do marketers need to wake up to what's happening? That's kind of what I take out of this, right? I mean, do they realize what's going on with these AI tools and Amazon and everything else? Maybe not. So at least based on this data. So we'll see. All right, well, let's get into our topic today, which is what's the greatest impediment to building a great culture in B2B e-commerce? And, Andy, this is not just it's the culture. It's also, from our world view, of course, it's also about a digital culture, one that understands the importance of digital as a part of this. But really, we asked the question because this is such a foundational element of being successful with e-commerce and with digital. You need to have a culture that embraces, that's willing to change, that is those sorts of things. So we wanted to dive into this week, and we in fact did some research around this in terms of digital maturity. Andy, you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so we've been around this digital, culture, team culture issue for a while. We released a report 2 years ago
Yeah.
that was kind of foundational around this, which is how do you assess your own digital maturity? And then we released it, we just about a month or so ago, released part two in a three-part series about how do you take your digital maturity to the next level. And
Yeah.
in both of those reports, we have some really interesting insights about what develops culture.
Hmm.
And you can download both these reports at our website, masterb2b.com. So just there, and then backslash like accelerating your digital vision is one. I think the other one was just the name of the report, but you can find both these reports. That highly encourage it, because when we talk about team culture, we've actually put some thinking around it. So into that thinking,
Hmm.
um, we did a webcast recently, and this is kind of fun because you and I were debating what do we think is the most important dimension of digital maturity. And I swore up and down it's customer experience. I still believe that. So the four
Yeah.
options: digital tools, team culture, customer experience, and data and insights. And while customer experience got 27%, team culture, your choice, resonated
Yes.
more with the audience. So 41%
Hey,
said that
I
team
gotta.
the most important dimension of digital maturity. So we've been talking about this one for a while. In fact, 2 years ago, when we released our digital maturity report, we gave you kind of a way to sort of benchmark yourself. You can actually score
Yeah.
where you stand on various dimensions of team culture. And so there were really like 7 or 8 different areas. We're not going to go into each one, but just to give you an overview. So, okay, how sophisticated is your senior digital leader? Is this a person who, one man band who was the head of IT and had to build a website, or, and that's a stage one digital leader, or is it a more mature, like the highest level stage four digital leader who's been doing this for 15 years, brings a team of experience,
Right.
has implemented, failed, re-implemented, you know, um, over many, many years. So again, it's the senior most digital leader. It's the team too. I mean, are we talking about, people who are sort of new to this kind of thing? Are they B2B people who don't know e-commerce, or e-commerce people who don't know B2B? There's all sorts of different ways of looking at that. But generally, if you have a smaller team, that's indicative of being an early stage company versus, some of these stage four digital teams, as we know, have 40, 50, 100, 200,
Right.
1,000 people in house. That's a much larger. But some of this is mindset too. So another area we've looked at is senior team digital mindset. So this is really kind of the team, the
Right.
C-suite. And we define as sort of a early stage, digitally immature company as digitally indifferent, meaning, we're for digital, I guess, if it's there on a Tuesday and it's easy. Versus the more mature companies who had to fight through this. They're ones who are like fully embracing digital. It's a part of the way they think. When they make a decision about any part of the business, digital is right near the top in terms of what impact it's going to have.
Yeah. Think about companies like a Granger or others that have a lot of digital experience at the top of the organization. Right.
Now, of course, a very important dimension of any B2B digital culture is the sales team,
Right.
because they're often the ones who feel threatened by digital, don't fully understand how it's going to help them versus why it wouldn't be an existential threat. So early stage companies, they don't engage. Salespeople teams don't engage. In fact, they're antagonistic to the idea of digital.
Right. Yep.
Versus very mature teams, they're fully aligned and integrated.
Right.
And they realize they can make a lot more money
Right.
by leveraging digital than versus fighting it. And then the last one that we talk about here is organizational design. And what
Hmm.
we've seen here is early stage companies, digitally immature companies, tend to have generalists.
Right.
There are people who do multiple things. The later stage, more digitally mature companies, not only are they larger, but they're more specialized. You have somebody who focuses on SEO. You have somebody who's a platform expert versus the early stage ones. And we've both known these kinds of scenarios where the man or woman who is,
Hmm.
running the website is also making the platform decisions, is also doing all the hiring, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's great early on, but you have to get more specialized later.
Okay, so this is about maturity, which is a portion of culture, of course. We did a poll. We asked our LinkedIn community, what's the biggest impediment to building a great culture in B2B that recognizes the importance of digital? Number one answer out of four choices was overcoming old thinking, 50%, followed closely by breaking down silos, 41%. Less important, people thought, were a dispersed remote workforce or inexperienced talent. They didn't see those two as really impediments, only 6 and 3%, respectively. So, Andy, it really is about, building this, this mindset on one of the elements here and across the organization. So, what we found was this really interesting article and some key points around building a successful culture, 6 keys. Andy, what you found this article? Tell us a little more about it.
Yeah, so like in the poll that you just showed, I think we saw two things popped out. One was psychological, which
Right.
is old thinking. The other one is structural, which is how do you put that into action? Well, Aaron Meyer, who's a professor at INSEAD and the author of a book called The Culture Map, Breaking Through the Invisible Boundaries of Global Business, as well as many other books, has really thought a lot about this. And
Hmm.
she's identified, like you said, 6 key areas. We'll just run through all 6 quickly, but we want to double click on 2 of them that really stood out to us as relevant in particular to
Right.
B2B. Number one, not in particular order, but the first one was build your culture based on real world dilemmas. You can't use abstract terms. I always joke about this, that
Right.
airlines say safety is our number one priority. I'm like, really? I mean, we know safety is important, but isn't making money your number one priority, or having happy customers be your number one priority? But things like that don't wash, because how do you implement that if you're, employee? If you're, making decisions about where to put flights, you're thinking, well, let's start with safety. What's the safest way to get this flight from point A to point B? I
Well,
mean, I don't
yeah,
think nobody.
yeah, exactly right. And her point about dilemmas, Andy, was an interesting one because it really is the practical application of what you're saying your culture is about, right? It's actually putting it into a decision, a dilemma where an employee has a decision to make and reflecting back on or understanding what that culture is as a guiding principle to making the decision. So general abstract statements don't give you that ability, essentially, is what she's saying. Doesn't give the ability to make for that employee to make a decision based on some ethos or some principle. So I thought that was really interesting because it makes it practical.
Which leads to the second one, which is move your culture from abstraction to action. And they
Right.
said, avoid terms like, there was one example they gave in there. I think it was a healthcare company, and said, it's simple, we care. What do you do with that? I mean, what does an
Right.
employee do with we care? The better
Right.
way to do this is the way Amazon approached it, which is their value statement is have a backbone, disagree, and commit. Now, that's
Right.
something that you can put into action, because if you're in a meeting and you don't agree with what somebody's doing, you can channel that and say, you know what, I'm going to raise my hand here and say, look, I think this is a mistake. We need to go in a different direction. Here's why. I've worked in high tech. That's a really critical deciding factor. And that's
Yeah.
something you can actually sink your teeth into.
Yeah, and it sets. I think it sets the parameter for how a company. It's okay to disagree. There's so many. We see this in B2B all the time, Andy, where people are afraid to disagree. They don't want to disagree with the boss. They don't want to, in the meeting to say, "Hey, I don't agree with that." But if it's stated by the company, this is the way we do things. That creates a culture where it's okay to do that. And in the case of Amazon, it's led, foundational component of what's led to their success. Test and learn. It's okay to fail. Those sorts of things. So I thought that was a really important one.
Yeah, the third one they mentioned is one we'll spend very little time, which is paint your culture in full color. And what they meant by that is sometimes a logo and an image can speak to how you think about things. I think they give an example like a pineapple, which I guess in Eastern culture signifies hope. But that is like one abstract thing on top of another abstract thing. I can see where it might appeal to people because it gets people, behind an idea. But I think you and I both agree that's probably not as important as the next one, which is hire the right people and they will build the right culture. I think you and I both thought this one
Huge,
really made a lot of sense.
huge. Yeah, this one, and they even gave an example like of Patagonia, for example, in the article, where they'll take a chance and hire someone who's an outdoor enthusiast who may not have all the skill sets and train them. versus hiring someone who's has all the skill sets, but is clueless in terms of the use of their product. So that's a way you can put this again into action. But the right people, and I've seen this in our own company here, Andy, and in other companies in my Enciba business, you hire the right people that fit with what you want to build as a culture. It will materialize. This is the most important one by far, in my opinion.
Well, I love that they cited one company in here, and there's another one I know about that has a similar approach. They cited Shopify,
Oh yeah,
and Shopify said, "We're not a family." You know, you always hear this companies talk about we're a family. It's like we're not a family. You're born into a family, and they said you can't unfamily. They can't unfamily you. The danger of family thinking is it becomes incredibly hard to let poor performers go.
right.
Shopify is a team. And this is the same approach that Netflix famously takes. Reed Hastings has talked about this, and I think he says it really well. He's like, think about Netflix as an elite pro team. And he said, he said the same thing. You can't fire your sister. I mean, if you think about it as family, what are you going to do? Put mom on a performance improvement plan? But he said, if you think about it like a pro team where everybody has to kind of earn their job every year, and if you hire the right people and they play really well together, he said you can do things like make no look passes,
Right.
like they have in basketball or soccer, for example. You can't do that unless you have really talented people. And so let's just not, let's dispense with this idea of being a family. Let's think about it being like a professional team. And you
Yep.
got to earn your spot. If you do, you'll be well compensated. And the reason you want to do this is because you want to play with the best. And
Yep.
so I think that's the right approach.
Yep. Yep. The next one is make sure your culture drives strategy. I think was it Drucker that said culture eats what was it? Culture eats strategy for breakfast or something like that.
Yeah.
Emphasizing that, it's not your culture is really the thing that allows you to realize a strategy, right?
Yeah, they have to modify one another, but you can't let your strategy drive your culture, because like if your strategy is to win every deal, then your culture is going to be win at all costs, right?
Right.
Versus if you think, hey, we're going to perform at the highest level and we want to win every deal, and that's your culture, that can drive your strategy to win every deal. It seems subtle, but there's a difference there. I think your approach has to drive your strategy and not necessarily the opposite. But I think the last one
Yeah.
it was surprising, but I think informative. And it's this idea of don't be a purist. And the
Mhm.
example they cited here was Netflix. In fact, this woman, Erin Meyer, actually wrote a book about Netflix, which is why there's a lot of Netflix citations in here. But she said they took transparency too far. And one example they gave was they wanted everybody to know everything. So they started revealing everybody above the director level in the company, all of their total compensation.
Wow.
And I think the idea was because it's a publicly traded company, everybody knows that about the C-suite. I mean, Reed Hastings' salary and compensation was
Right.
published in public documents, right? So that, well, let's just take it down a level. And they said the problem was after 1 year of doing that, I think it was 80% of the people
Yeah.
in the company said, get rid of it, because
Oh
they
wow.
said they started reducing people to their salary. They'd be walking down the hallway thinking, oh, that's Bobby makes $347,000, or that's Sally, she makes
Wow.
$155,000.
Crazy.
So
Wow.
there is a point where you can go too far. So, transparency is really important, but there's a limit to that. And I think that's the point here. I agree with that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So, yeah, I mean, six criteria here for building a successful culture. It really resonated with us, and I think it plays into what we found from our community, Andy. So, yeah, to me though, the right people is really the most important part of this. If you got the wrong people in there, a brilliant jerk, right, who's just
Yeah.
going to spread negativity through the organization. They may be really smart and great at their job from an individual contributor standpoint, but doesn't create the culture, that person that you want to create your business. So we have some really good takeaways there, but we're at almost Friday 20 here, Andy. So we gotta make a couple quick announcements and wrap up. Folks, we've announced our fall roundtable dates in September and October. We're going to be in Denver, Chicago, New York, LA, Atlanta, Dallas, Milwaukee, Cleveland, and Minneapolis, all the way through September and October. We're taking the show on the road. These are great events, 30-ish people at each of these, and they're conversations followed by networking and nice executive dinners. They are complimentary for practitioners in these markets, or if you can get to these markets, encourage you to sign up. Go to our website, masterb2b.com, and click on events and upcoming events. You'll see all these listed. You can submit, a form there to join us. Also, always want to remind folks about our forum, having some great conversations, 6 or 7 just this week, all around different issues people are having, in trying to solve problems for their business. The forum is a sort of like a private LinkedIn just for practitioners. We only have executives from manufacturers, distributors in the forum, some former, but really it's just a great, robust group. There's no vendors or solution providers in there. And it's free. So go to masterb2b.com, click on forum, and you can submit an application to join us there. Finally, as always, want to remind folks that all of our Friday 15 episodes are available on your favorite podcast format, also on our website. You can go to Google, Spotify, Apple, find us there, or just go to our website and you'll see the information. So, Andy, great session, good conversation today. Any final words before we part?
Yeah, I want to congratulate you on convincing me to do a Friday 15 about culture. And
right.
So you you won.
I won. Hey, I got to win something, man. And by the way, the audience agreed with me, and that our community agreed with me on that poll earlier.
There's one.
I get one. So I often lose our debates, unfortunately, but hey, I got one in the books today. So folks, thanks so much for joining. We will see you next week on our next Friday 15.